Hello everyone, we are learning today, yes. I am not using the latest version of Live2D Cubism. It should still work the same if you have the latest version of Live2D Cubism. So it should be fine, okay, if you're using that. I forgot to turn off that. Okay, let me see. This, okay. So I have it opened already. If you don't, then just turn on your Live2D Cubism. I hope that if you're following along, you have downloaded the model. So we are starting with the prep of the model, which, you know, you can open it either by going to File, Open, or if you have it inside your downloaded files, just drag and drop. Right. So prepping the model is always the first thing that you have to do. And if you have like everything set up properly, like your artist has already, you know, separated everything properly for you, then your prep isn't as troublesome, I would say. Trial version 43 days remaining good. Yes. Okay. So today, let me tell you, first of all, we prep the meshes and all that, right? And you'll also be learning a little bit of glue, which I know when I first started out using Live2D, really difficult for me to learn how to use glue. But I will be teaching you how to use a little bit of glue, because if you look at her raised arm, that's like textures and all that, you could technically separate the artist that you're working with could technically separate the texture with like the normal skin of the fingers or your hand if you have like a translucent glove like this. But for me, because this is just a simple thing, I'm just going to use glue to help me make sure that it doesn't become weird the moment I turn the fingers around, you know? Live2D is dead? What do you mean by your Live2D is dead? I don't have a single thing open yet. Well, we can open it now. If I have anything to update the model about, which I sometimes actually do, like I working on the Live2D and then I realized that, hey, I didn't separate this part good enough, or I should separate this more, then I would go back and rework the art file. If I ever do that, I would share the file too. Just letting you know, it might happen, okay? It might happen. So what I tend to do first is you look at the file and then you see there's like some texture that's not connected to where it's supposed to connect and things like that. So that's what I would do first, is I would go to, let's say, the head, right? And then we have like the head shade, the head highlight, the blush. I will make sure that it is all clipped to the correct layer. So that's what you tend to have to do. Hello Zolanius, welcome in. We're learning Live2D today. Obviously, as I've said before, this will be uploaded onto like either my WODS archive or like my art YouTube. I don't know which one. We'll find out when that happens. But yeah, make sure you check for some, for example, okay, you see like her eyes. This is just one layer because I'm just going to do like one side of the model and I'm going to like flip it to the other side after I copy and paste it. So I will make sure that it's correct. For example, making sure that this is actually additive under the blend mode. Sorry, can't speak. Making sure everything is actually clipped before I go into the meshes, including like the highlights and the glow, right? For For example, gloom. You also have to make sure that it's tagged, is clipped correctly onto the head. You know, things like that you have to like make sure you do correctly. I would usually also clip the eyelids onto the head as well, just so that if you do rig like a more complicated head turning movement, because there are people who do that, right? You clip it to the face so that certain parts doesn't jut out of the face. For example, if you have like eyeshadow and things like that, sometimes you don't realize it, but the eyeshadow is actually outside of the face, which doesn't make sense. So that's what I tend to do. We have light shading here for the mid hair, as I call it. Right, so this has to be clipped onto the body, which you can, if you're clipping multiple things at once, you can open up this list looking thing here, and then you can just scroll down to what you want to clip it to. So for this, I would say clip to the neck, and then the chest, and then the upper body. Alright, so you make sure that it's clipped properly. And what else? The brush shade will have to be clipped to the upper body as well. There are some people who clip it to the arm as well. If you want to do that, you can do it. I personally usually only clip it to the upper body. That's how I usually do things. And then for the hair, right, you can see the back hair has like this view that's not clipped to the model. So we'll just do that. And then we also have one for the front bangs. So I'll clip that. Clip those to that. I don't need another side highlight, I don't think. But yeah. What else? What is that? A back hair shade. Oh, the back hair shade was for the twin tails. So I'll clip those to that. Okay. So now, well, there's still one. I forgot. The frills. The chest frills. So for the chest frills, I didn't like cut it off immediately at the chest. Is because in Live2D you can do this. Basically for her it will be the clothes, right? So you clip it to the clothes and then you want it away from the clothes, so you would click invert mask and then, you know, it will show up above the clothes. That's usually how it is. So it looks like it's, you know, above the clothes. So even if you did do like some physics and stuff to make the frills move, it wouldn't look like it's coming off of the clothes. Obviously, there's another way you can do this, which is by using glue. I personally don't use glue that much. And there are other parts of this model that has to use glue, so I think it's fine to like do it this way. This is like not exactly a very difficult rig that I'm going to teach you. I do things as simple as possible because I don't like to give myself a lot of trouble, okay? Usually at this point in time, I would just do like a save. I have a lot of files, ignore those. And then I would always make sure to save it in versions. Just so that if you did mess up something, you can go back to that previous version and kind of, you know, either redo from that previous version or something like that. And now we do mesh, which is haha very fun. I would usually just do like a automatic mesh generator, and then if something doesn't look right, I edit from there. I don't usually do... I used to do manual mesh, but just because it's manual doesn't mean that it's good. Okay, there are times where the manual mesh is kind of bad actually. So I would usually just go ahead and do some automatic mesh. If you want to, you can copy down the settings that I have so that it should generate about the same kind of automatic mesh for you. It's basically usually the setting that I use for my things. And obviously it's really bad at generating meshes like these that are not of a very very good shape. And sometimes I would edit that, sometimes I won't, depending on my mood. Okay, but we just go ahead and generate those, and then we'll edit things as things go along. Also, if you have like, for example, these kind of layers that are hidden, if you don't select them and then generate the mesh will not get generated. So just make sure you check. I mean, you can generate the mesh anytime you want. Just letting you know there are times when things are hidden and you press Ctrl A to select everything to like generate mesh, it would not get generated. For eyes, eyebrows, eyelashes and stuff, usually I would go in and do the mesh myself, because the eye movement... How do I say this? It's not really the eye movement, it's just certain parts the generated mesh doesn't help you. Okay, instead if you do it manually, it actually works better. So there are times that I don't use automatic mesh, but most of the time I use automatic mesh. Okay, hi Mirodin, welcome in. You're just learning about Live2D today. For example, like if it's a line, a straight line like the nose, I usually wouldn't use automatic mesh, because it's a straight line is easier to just use the mesh you make yourself, which I would show you. For example, nose, right? You can Ctrl A and delete the previous mesh, which is just a square, and then you can use this. This is called stroke mesh mapping. Make sure you change it to 3 under this mesh mapping settings, right? Select the 2 points, you make sure you change the repeated density and things like that. And then you can edit the width. Depending on how you're going to rig the nose, you might want it as many as this, or you might just want it as little as that, depending how you go about rigging. For me, I recently I've been doing like when the nose turns, that's like a sharp point of the nose, so I would require more. Recently, if it's like in the past where the nose line still remains like pretty stagnant, then you can just do it as a density 2. So depending on how you want to rig it, just make sure that the width, right, make sure that it's covering the art itself, right? So you can see that the width, the art is kind of blurry, but you can see it kind of ends here, and there's a little bit of gap. Just make sure you cover everything, right, when making meshes. And for me, recently I've been making mouth references, so that means I draw how I want like the mouth to look at certain points. So for example, if I hit these, right, so this is like the default smile. I usually work with a straight line for the mouth, but the straight mouth didn't look that great, so I'm just going to use this one to rig. It doesn't really matter as long as you're able to like set up the mesh correctly, it should still look okay. It's just I personally prefer a straight line, but the straight line mouth was ugly and I couldn't get it to look right, so I'm just going to use the default smile look. So I have references for like unhappy mouth, like smiling mouth, and different parts. Like the English is A-E-I-O-U, but this is a Japanese software, so it's going by A-I-U-E-O. So we have like the references for that. Don't have to do anything with the references, just leave it there, ignore them, right? Literally don't have to do anything. But I'll tell you, because I did prep the model for a straight mouth line. The separation of the lips are straight, but we'll get to like slowly teach you how to edit that, okay? So don't worry about it. For say, this one depends on who you're rigging for, if you're rigging for yourself and things like that. But for say, she prefers not to be so smiley all the time, right? So she would prefer a more straight looking mouth at some point in time rather than just fully smiles. So if you're rigging for somebody like that, you might want to change the mouth forms a little bit. If not, just go by whatever you like, you know. For the inner mouths, usually I also do automatic meshing, and then make sure you clip everything into the inner mouth. So we haven't done any mesh making for the eyes yet. Not fully done. Don't worry about it. The lips as well. Don't worry about it. I'm just doing the easier parts first. Okay, for the head. Oops. For the head, usually this works pretty darn well for me. Okay. So what I do is I would just... Oh. Make sure you copy it in like normal brush. I will just copy this and I would use it on the other layers. That's basically the same thing, you know. I have the head shade, right? I have these. And then for this one, because the file isn't that big, you don't have to keep everything. Make sure to delete away the parts that you don't need, you know. For example, for this one, you don't need the inner of the head as well. I will usually just keep the rest of like the parts the same. And you might be like, well, doesn't this use up a lot of... If you've done rigging before, doesn't this use up a lot of your texture atlas? I'll be like, yeah, but I'm just teaching you how I rig, so you know, not everything is right. It's just how I personally do things. So follow whatever you think works well for you, and then you do the other parts differently by yourself, okay? I'm just saying that the way that I teach is not necessarily always right. Oh, wrong one. I would use automatic mesh on this as well. And then the neck. There's also a head shading for the neck, which you can also just use the automatic mesh, I think. For this, like, you can see that I didn't actually erase it that perfectly, but you don't really need to do a lot of things with that, so I'm just going to like automatic mesh everything. Is it that healthy for like your texture atlas? No. Will I still do it that way? Yeah. So, you know, just take whatever knowledge from the parts that you need and learn from there, and then change the rest by yourself or something. We have the necklace. For the necklace, because it's pearls, right, I have this as my position for the pearls, and then I have a separate art file for each individual pearl. Does it need to be that complicated? Not really, but if you separated each pearl by itself and you add a rotation tool to each pearl by itself, when you do deformation, right, for example physics, right, you want the necklace to be like moving, waving and all that. For example, if I show the mermaid that I did, the model winner, oh my god, where is she? This girl, right? So she has a lot of pearls, and the reason why I do this is so that when she moves, the pearl doesn't get deformed into like a weird looking shape. Like no matter how the string is like shaking, the pearl doesn't change the shape. It still remains as like a full circle. So that's why I have the pearl separated. If you don't separate the pearls, if you need something and you don't want it to change shape, and you don't separate it, when you rig it in, it's going to get deformed. It is how it is. Okay, if you have it separated, you put a rotation deformer. Once you have a rotation deformer, if you put another normal deformer above it, it won't be able to change shape. So that is what you can use it for. So pearl, we have the pearl shading as well, and then we will make sure to clip. We'll make sure to clip this too onto upper body. You've been looking at your bin bag today. You don't do much art stuff, so you won't have a lot to add to what's going on. That's fine. I'm teaching this because there was people who asked me about it. So I was like, sure, I'll teach them how to do how I usually do things. So we have the pearl. I would use automatic mesh again. Usually for the smaller things, standard is fine. For the gem, because it's very angular, I would do the mesh by myself. Also, I don't know why it's like this is kind of what happens if the art file isn't like cleaned up properly. So I guess that's like some tiny pixel that's at the side here. My fault, I didn't check that, but it's fine, we can still work with it. Collarbone, I would say usually doesn't matter that much because you don't really add physics to the collarbone. Chest frills, same thing. The chest, same thing. I will use the automatic mesh. Usually it comes out pretty damn nice. The automatic mesh, that is. You just have to edit certain parts at certain time. For the line, it's a straight line, so I would do what I did with the nose. And then we have the highlight. Now, obviously I didn't do this just now, but we will be clipping the highlight to the base, the color base, and then that. And then I would copy this mesh for the chest line mesh, which is technically not perfect. Okay, because it's lines, you would want the mesh to usually follow what the art looks like. But for me, I feel like it usually doesn't matter that much because like I said, I don't do complicated rigs. So if it's not complicated, you don't really see the mesh move in such a way that you have to like make sure the mesh that you made is like perfect. So I would do it in a very lazy way, which is usually something like this. Okay, this is just how I rig. productivity and B doesn't really work together. Sometimes during midnight they do. I feel that. It's fine. Okay, for the frills, this is also another part where there will be glue included. Right? But for now, I would just auto mash everything. Because if it's glue, you will have to make sure that the parts you want connected has like the same points. So the mesh have to have the same points as the other part you want it to connect to. So that one you'll have to make sure that you do the mesh correctly. If not, then it doesn't really matter. The only reason why you want to glue things like frills is so that when you make them move, they don't like, you know, separate into like different parts. That's usually how it is. Okay, arm. You see for the arm frills, I only have like the right part separated as well. The one on the left is just a one whole piece by itself. It's because we're just going to do one side and flip it to the other side. So it doesn't matter. Okay. And we'll make the head, the back hair. Copy this for the line mesh. As well as this one. And then for that too, I will just do automatic mesh. It's going to come out looking really crappy, but it's fine. If you have like things like this, right, where it's a weird shape, the automatic mesh usually comes out looking pretty weird as well. But if it's not something too important, I think it's fine to keep it in that strange shape. Okay. Is it a good teaching thing? Probably not. You probably want your mesh to like look as perfect as possible, but to me, as long as it works, it's fine. That's how it works in my brain. So I don't really bother with it all that much. Okay. So for necklace, we're going to use the stroke mesh mapping again, right? Even though it's not a straight line, but it's still a line, right? So what I'll do is I'll click, when you scroll down, if you selected stroke mesh, if you scroll down, there will be mirror edit. So you can select that. And then you can just make sure you do something like that. Oh, I forgot how many repeated density there was. Okay. And then you can select points in between to make sure it follows along the line of the necklace. Just do it to about, like I said, make sure that it sticks in between the art, right? You can add as many points in between as you need. Wherever you're making the mesh, just make sure that your art is not sticking out of the mesh, because if not, that's how it's going to like show up. Like parts of the art that is not within the mesh would just be cut away. Like you won't be able to see the art then. If you do 3D, then it's kind of the same as a UV mapping. Okay, so for mirror edits, usually the middle is like cannot be connected, so you have to draw that part in yourself. Okay, which isn't too difficult. I would usually keep it so that there's like a point somewhere around the middle. Which is technically you're supposed to make the mesh equal spacing from each other, but because of the weird shape there, usually that would happen. But I think if it works, it's fine. That's how I usually do things, and how I usually say about these things too. As long as it's working, it's fine. Okay. Now for this one, right? For this, the easiest way is just to follow the outline, because this is a gem and it's supposed to be hard, so you don't want it to look weird when you're rigging it. So just make sure that the places cut is following the gem lines. This is usually for the hard materials. You have it about there. Obviously, you can do this for like any mesh that you're creating. Okay, I just usually do it for meshes like this because, you know, it's important-ish if you're adding like physics. The rest to me isn't as like important, sorry to say this. But it's not as important. Okay, for the shading, it's the same shape, so I'm just going to move this down a little bit to fit the shading, and that's it. Okay, what else haven't we done yet? We technically haven't do the eyes, but I think for the eyes, for the makeup, you can still use the automatic meshing. Usually doesn't really matter as much. Then we'll work on the eyes first before we work on the mouth. So for brow, oh, wrong one. For brows, I would also use the stroke mesh editing tool. And then I would change this to 1. Or you can still use 3 as well. Technically, it doesn't really matter. Okay, you can use, if you're just planning on drawing the line, using 1 like works completely fine. I don't think a brow requires that many repeated densities most of the time, depending on the shape of your brows, right? Because my art style is kind of anime-ish. Well, it is anime-ish, so usually the brows isn't that complicated. So I can just do this. Okay. Or you can just use the this normal point tool to do the mesh yourself. So if you don't like how it looks, you know, you just use the normal point tool. For me, usually, because the way that I draw the brows, the ends of the brows is much thinner, so you don't really need points in between the end of the brows. At least that's usually how I feel like. Obviously, if you have a tablet and pen, I would say, and you're not that great at controlling with a mouse, just use your tablet and pen to like help you draw the points. Okay, but using a mouse works fine. It works completely fine. Okay, so for example, if you've done the outline of the mesh that you wanted and you think, yeah, this looks good enough, right? And then you wanna add the mesh in between. You don't have to add it one by one by yourself. You can just use auto connect. It will connect the mesh properly for you. So it works like that as well. For lash highlight, I would just make a standard one. And then for the lashes, usually I would draw like one cutting through. Because the way that I draw lashes are kind of thick. Alright, so I would draw one that's cutting through the middle of the lashes like this. Okay. And then from there, I would build on it. Because of how thick I draw the lashes, I would cut through it quite a bit, I would say. I think depending on your artist, you might not have to do it as troublesome as my model, okay? But if you're following along with the model that I've made, you might have to do this. Just so that when it gets deformed, when like your characters blink, it doesn't look weird, okay? So that's a thing that you might wanna keep an eye on, because depending on how the eyelashes is drawn, it does get a little bit wonky if you have to deform it quite a bit. For example, if you're like one of those artists that draw eyes that are round and big, like the eyelashes are round and have big eyes, when you try to rig those close, it might look very weird if you then separate the eyelashes into different parts, mostly because of how much it has to be deformed. But if you're an artist like me who has been making, you know, their own models and models for friends for quite a while, you would probably get used to rigging your own model way easier than, you know, rigging other people's models. That's usually how it is, because you have more practice with your own model, right? Hello, Gnocchi. We're learning Live2D today, or rather I'm trying my best to teach Live2D today. But for now we're doing meshes prepping before rigging. This is something you always have to do before you rig any models. Alright, there's no escape. Everybody will have to do this. And depending on how many parts to your model, you might have to make more meshes. Of course, the better you do your mesh prepping, the better you can rig a model. If you go and watch the very, very good rigging artists, you will realize that most of them actually make custom meshes for almost everything. I am a very, very lazy artist, so if I can find ways to make my life easier, I would. And one of my ways is to not make as complicated meshes for parts that doesn't move as much. Or like for parts that doesn't require as much physics added. I usually don't make like very complicated or very up to standard mesh for them. Okay. Bottom highlights, because it's round, I'm just going to use standard. Obviously, everything when it's new, you're going to be like, man, this sounds so complicated. This is so difficult. Don't worry about it. I was the same when I first started learning Live2D. You just got to really patiently learn. And then once you get the hang of it, it's no longer as scary. Plus recently, in the more recent years, there are like tutorials everywhere. Very helpful tutorials. Some for free, some for a little bit of money. If you really want to learn, it's always good to like take a look at those. Okay, eyes done. Alright, make sure to save from time to time if you don't want to lose like all your things, all your effort that you've done. Now we will do the mouth, right? Because we haven't done the meshes for the mouth yet. So, oops, like I said, I'm supposed to use a straight mouth line, but it looked really bad. So now we're going to use this curved mouth line, which is supposed to be the deformed default look. Sorry, I can't speak. Default look to the face. So the line is one thing, right? But right now we will do the mesh editing for the lips first. So usually if you have like a straight mouth line, the mouth would probably start from around this to like this area of like the upper lips skin, if you want to call it as that. Usually, okay, usually it would be around there. So I will work with that in mind. I'll probably put around here to here. Alright, just make sure the ends is, you know, covering the past the skin of the lip.
There's our man. There's our man. There's our
Okay.
boy.
Yay.
And then I will make the density, because you'll have to move this around, so I'll make the density a little bit more points in between. Okay, so this would be the mesh for default lips look, I would say. And I would always make sure to copy this first, because you'll be reusing this same bottom part of the mesh for the lipstick if your character has lipstick, or for lip shading if like your character has like lip shading if it's like separated from the skin. Okay, so make sure you have that copied, and then I would just do something really simple. And I will cut through here. Usually, right, because she has lipstick, for like, because she's a female character, I gave her lipstick, right? So I will usually copy this. To make sure. Well, usually, sometimes you don't need upper part if your lipstick is like mine, which is, there's no other parts, because some people cut their model after they finish the art, right? For me, I have everything separated to begin with, so I don't need to worry about that. You know, cut through the middle, something like that. Okay. Doesn't really need it to be like super complicated. The way that I do things as doesn't have to be complicated. As simple as possible, that's usually how I do things. You could also make it so that, for example, you copy the lipstick to here. If you want to use glue, okay, you can use glue for lips too. But I personally, I don't really use glue for the lips, because the way that I draw the lips, there's always it's always thicker at the sides than being a straight thickness for the mouth, the lips line. So I don't really use glue. Instead of like using glue, I would just rig them together. That's a way to do that. good enough, right? Then that means I have every single part of the mesh prepped, kind of. You still need to adjust certain parts, like, you know, the parts where you want to use glue. You have to edit that still, but for now, it's kind of prepped. Then I would start preparing the parameters. So I have like folders. I separate my folders. One I have for facial features. So for face movement and stuff. For example, the eye open, eye smile, eyeballs, the brows, the mouth, the cheek. All of that I will move into eye facial features. Right? And like I said, recently I rigged with physics for like the face movements and body movements. So I will also do that as well. So angle augmentation, right? And then there's also body augmentation. After that, it will be physics. So I will have separated folders for physics. Usually it's like I separate it into facial physics. Oh, wrong spelling. Facial physics, body physics, and hair physics. Why do I put it in such a way with facial at the most bottom? Because I usually rig the face features, like the physics first, both the face features and the physics first. Then I will do the body angles and stuff, which means I will have to add, like, for example, she has a chest and she has long ears. Those physics, I will add it into body physics. And then I would finally work on hair physics. So the reason why I put it this way is so that later on when you do it inside the physics settings, right, it will show the hair physics at the topmost where you can select them, even under the list, okay? Because if not, there's a lot of physics that you have to go through. You have to scroll down a lot to look for what you're looking for, which can be a pain in the ass. Okay, so that's usually how I do it. I would replicate the angle X so that I can put it into the augmentation. Okay, angle X, replicate, rename it. You rename it so that you can what do you call this? Find it easier and keep your things organized. Okay, so we have the face, and then now we also make one for the body. Oh. There we go. So we have all of this. And for me, right, I've never ever used brow X. I don't know what it's for. Your brows don't move sideways, because for X usually it means like horizontal movement, but your brows don't move sideways. Okay, so I've never used brow X. I always delete those. This is just a me thing. If you want to add it in, feel free. I just don't understand what it's used for. Angle, usually, sometimes I don't use angle either, depending on who you're rigging for. Okay. So now we will first start with rigging the eyes, because that's usually what I do first. Okay, so we can hide away the front hair. Alright, so that you can see the face more clearly. Usually you can also hide away the other side of the face if you want to. I do it by copy and paste for the other side, so I would usually just keep those hidden as well. And the blush can wait till later. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll select all parts of the right eye, including the lids. So you have to go, if you have mine like it's separated from the eyelashes itself, you have to go scroll down, find it, and then you put it all under one deformer, just so that it's easier for you to find where everything is, because you have it like all properly stored in one place. So you know that under your eyes deformer, every single part of your right eye is like inside there. Okay, so we can start with the brows. So usually how I rig brows is I will use this tool. It's called Deform Path Edit, and I will just put it onto the brows. Okay, make sure it's along like the middle line of where the brows is, and then you can adjust the width. Right, I usually keep the hardness at 50%, which is the default. I just change the width so that it doesn't, you know, take up the whole screen. And then we'll do the Y movement of the brows, which is for the positive number of Y. So at +1, I will raise the eyebrows, right, like kind of a shock eyebrow look. Obviously, this is depending on your personal envision, right? How exaggerated you want it to be. Do it however you like. I don't think my brows usually like are rigged that exaggerated, so I keep it as that. And then for -1, I would usually make it into a frown, and like an angry frown. Just adjust the shape until it's something you think looks right or looks good for you. Okay, that's usually how I do this. I know the angle, you know, some people use it. I don't, so I'm sorry, I'm not going to teach you that. I will use form, okay? The eyebrow form. There are two ways I use the eyebrow form. One is doing it manually, so I would add another 3 points, normally like this, the Y movement. The lazier way I would do it is making the parameter into a blend shape. Okay. Then I believe for positive, I will make it into a sad looking eyebrow. Alright, and then I believe for the negative, it will be another angry looking eyebrow. And the only difference for blend shape is that you've already rigged the Y movement of the brows, right? So the blend shape would just take this shape and whatever you have rigged for the Y form, and they would adjust it accordingly, kind of, right? So you don't have to like re-rig anything. This is what I say is the lazy way of like doing it. And then from there, I would just be like, oh, I don't really like how this one looks. I would want to adjust the back a bit. And then I just go ahead and do this. Okay, lazy way. This is why it's called the lazy way. But it works for me. So, you know. You'll be like, but it's cutting through the eyelid right now. It's fine. We'll adjust that later on with something else. Right? So, brows done. Next, eyelashes. Okay. So, usually I would start work with the thickest part, which is what I named the main lash. Right? Same thing. Using the deformed path. I'll put down points around the middle of the eyelash. Okay. And then change the width. Make sure it's covering the points that you want each individual dot you want it to like control. Okay. And then you remember to always key in keyforms for your parameter, okay? So for Shikise, right, she uses a webcam for streaming and she also wears glasses. So what this means is that if you're also somebody like that, you probably don't want to include in a shock eyes look into your rig right in the eyes. Because iOS will be able to track it pretty well if you're front facing. It doesn't even track well if you're facing the side, okay? If you're wearing glasses and all that. It doesn't track the shock eyes that well. But if you're facing the front into the camera, iOS will be able to track it. However, webcam, if you're Asian and you're wearing glasses and your lighting isn't that great, will not be able to track that you're not showing the shock eyes. You will constantly be showing the shock eyes look. So for her, because I know she's using webcam, lighting isn't that great, she wears glasses, I usually will not rig the shock eyes in. Okay, and I would also always add another keyform. So for 1 and 0.8, it will be eyes open, just so that it's less easy to track the eyes closing. If not, it's kind of finicky. Sometimes it will track like the eyes closing even though your eyes is not like closing. So this is just like something like adding a little bit of delay in the eyes closing movement tracking. Okay, I usually do this for all my models, including if I'm making shock eyes look, I would change the maximum to something like 1.5. Okay, then for shock eyes iOS tracking, right? For shock eyes look, I will also add another point at around 1.2. Add a point here. Oops. So that it remains as the default look. Okay, this is usually how I do the shock eyes. But for her, webcam, so no shock eyes for her rigged onto the eyes itself. So we're just going to do normal eyes closing. Okay. Hello, Ta-chan. Contact lens? No. Webcam tracking isn't great. Even if you use contact lens. I've tried before. So usually for me, because the face is an almond shape, right? So the face basically slopes in from the side to the chin, right? If you made the eyes closing the same width as the eyes open for the eyelashes, it will look weird. I don't know how to explain this, but because of the face shape, usually when the eyes is closing for like my art style, I would make it so that the eyelash is like more squeezed together. The width isn't as big as when the eyes is open, so it fits in with the eye shape better. Of course, you can highlight the other lashes and things like that for you to see your eyelash movement better, right? You can see it's wider, and then it's, how do you call this, less wide. I don't know, English word, English, how to even. Okay, so this is usually how I do it. And then once I have the eyes closed, rigged in for the main lash, or you know, if you're doing shock eyes look as well, then I would make the point in the eye smile. Okay, then I would adjust from here. And I know that there's a lot of people who would just take the original shape of the eyelash to do the eye smile, which you can. I'm not saying you can't. If you feel like that looks good, go for it, do that, right? I personally just like to adjust things to like my own liking. And I usually do the eye close before the eye smile because I like to adjust the width of the eyelashes. So this is a personal taste kind of thing. So depending on what you like, you might rig it a little bit different. Doesn't really matter, okay? Most of the times, unless if you're doing commission, then you know your commissioner obviously will have to like it. But if not, if you're just rigging for yourself, then as long as you like it, everything's fine. Okay? So wow, main lash, I have eye closing done. Right, easy. Okay, so now for the lashes, she has quite a bit of lashes. Okay, so we'll be doing the upper lashes first. So everything apart until the side lash, you'll have to make deformers for them. And the reason why you have to make deformers for them is because you want the eyelashes to have physics. If you want the eyelashes to have physics, if you don't use deformers, when you add in physics, everything is going to go haywire. I've done it multiple times before of forgetting to use a deformer. Okay, so just know that and make sure you name the things correctly so that you know what it's used for. It's look easy, or you should try rigging, Kachan. Okay, so I would make all the deformers for the top lashes first. Obviously, you might not have to deal with such thick ass eyelashes, right, when you rig some other models. But if you're following along, I'm sorry, I draw thick eyelashes now, so you'll have to deal with that, okay? So what you do is basically place it kind of like puzzle. Make sure everything is connected and looks okay. You can also use the I wonder if it's under here. This one, temporary deform tool. I sometimes use this. I use the, I believe it's the temporary path deformation. I use this so that, oh, I forgot the wrong button. So that you see, temporary deform tool, temporary path, so that you can do something like this, right? It's kind of like the path tool that you use for the main eyelashes, but this is temporary, so you can just use that to like very easily change the like deformation. You deform the eyelashes until you think it fits, and then you've done that. Alright, that's what you can use it for. For example, something like this as well. You just put the points, edit them. And then you can very easily change the change whatever you wanted to change with like no issues. Right, so that's one done. And then we'll do this one. Make sure that you have every single point key formed. Like I did the key form at 0.8. Make sure you add it in. Okay, if you forgot, that is a way to like help, but just make sure you add it in. Okay, important. So for this one, usually I would make a point at around 0. For her eyes, still probably around 0.1 or 0.2, just because, right, for her, for usually like eyelashes, I want, when they close, I want the eyelashes to face downwards. So you have to flip it down. By flipping it, I mean doing something literally by clicking the top part, transform it downwards. However, for Live2D, okay, usually if you do something like this, it can be seen in like certain parts. For example, if you do it too early on, like you did it at like 0.3 or 0.4 points in the eyes, when the character closes the eyes, you can actually see the eyelashes turning into a flat plane and then finally opening in the bottom, because that's how Live2D works. So for example, if I did this right now, you can see that if I move up at certain points, it becomes a straight line. And yes, that can be seen if, like, you know, you are taking a look at the model. Like if you're playing around with your model in VTube Studio and things like that, it can be seen. This thing will be seen as part of the rigging. Okay, what it's doing right here. Okay, so you want to make sure that this doesn't happen, which means you have to add additional points for your rigging. So I would go to about 0.1. Sometimes I do it at 0.2, but most of the times I think I do it at 0.1, just so that it's less easy to like catch that kind of look. So I'll move the eyelash down to where I want it at. Oh, pardon me. I'll move it so that it kind of fits at a certain point at 0.1. I'll be like, where would the eyelash be at 0.1, right? Well, I think 0.1 should be somewhere around here, actually. Okay, we'll do it for around this area now. Okay, so if you want to have it so that your 0.0 and 0.1 is at the same area, right, what you can do is Control Shift C at the keyform you want to copy it at, and then you click onto the keyform that you want to paste at, Control Shift V, and then you paste it there for you. So you can see that 0.0 and 0.1 is now at the same spot. So for 0.0, I would just flip it downwards, making sure it's about the same look I want the eyelashes to be. Okay, around here, I'll say around here. Hello, Tokito. Welcome in. Control Shift C only works for Pro. Yeah. My way of teaching only works for pros. Yeah, I'm using Pro for indie. So, yes, you'll have to have a Pro to like follow what I'm doing. No free version. I'm sorry. So once you have that done, then we'll make the same thing for the smile. Obviously, you can make the smile first, but I usually do the eyes closing first. Only pros allowed. No. You just have to use the Pro edition. Pro edition, Pro version. Okay, copy and paste. And then... Usually, I would say like rigging is kind of getting the model to look how you want it to look. Or how your commissioner wants it to look. So depending on who you're making for, it might get more difficult, it might be easy. I don't do complicated rigs, so I'm sorry I can't help you with those, but if you're just trying to, you know, make something easy for yourself, this should work just fine. So now you just have to redo all of this, okay, what I've just done, for the remainder of the lashes. Alright, wow, easy. Yes, give me a second. Medication. My brain isn't bumpy enough to understand what's happening. Don't worry about it. I'm teaching rigging because there were friends who wanted to learn how to rig from me. So I was like, I might as well just teach them how I usually rig my models. Okay. Now we continue on. Like I said, remember to put in keyforms, okay, for your rigging. Oh, wrong look. Okay. Sometimes there are parts of my own rig where I'm like, man, that looks weird. But, you know, it might look weird in the process, but as long as it looks fine in the end, doesn't really matter that much. Honestly, usually I have to be like, no, doesn't matter. It may look weird in the process, but as long as the final look looks fine, I think all's great. You don't deform on the art mesh already. The reason why I don't do that is because I want to add physics to the eyelashes, and if I deform the art mesh directly and then I add physics, everything would go haywire, which that's why I don't do it directly. I did it directly on the main lash, so the main lash is directly on the art mesh, but the rest is deformers. Now we will flip this. Oops. Making sure it looks alright. Okay, at the position where I want it to be at. To me, this looks alright, so I will continue on to making the eyelash close on the smile movement. If you hear chairs in the background, don't mind. Okay, that looks good enough for me. And then we'll work the same thing again for like I have like this thick ass side eyelashes, right? I will do the same thing again, except for these ones, because where it's positioned, I am not going to flip them. It's the best stream I saw this year. Just learning Live2D. I'll feed this in. Obviously, it's going to look very weird because of how this is. Okay. Because of my art style. That's why this will be like, wow. Wow, that thick ass eyelashes look weird. For these ones, right? Oh, I pressed the wrong thing again. So I will be using the temporary path deform tool again. Make sure you kind of know where the main eyelashes ends, and then from there you can deform it a little bit. Because of how long and how thick I drew these, obviously it's going to look weird. this is how it is. Okay. But well, depending on the art style and stuff, you might have to deal with something like this, and right now what you have to deal with is my art style. So sorry. Maybe. Am I truly sorry? Probably not. Deformer has a path tool? Yes, there is this one, temporary deform tool, where you can have all kinds of weird extra deformation on top of your deform tool. So what I usually use is the path deformation. Right, but there's also like distort perspective and all that. I just set a key, like a shortcut key for the path deformation, because that's the one that I use the most. Sometimes I use it for like hair physics rigging and things like that. Very helpful. Okay, should totally set a key for that as well. It's very helpful. I think adding the deformation looks weirder, so I'm just gonna keep it like this, straight and very, very dangerously piercing. Move it down a bit so that it's not jutting out that much. If you've done rigging of your own art before and you feel, because you don't usually do rigging all the time, right? So there are times where you like forget how your rigging looks. If you have like past works, you can always go back and take that as references. That is if you have past works. If not, I would also say like if you follow tutorials, then look at what the other artist is like doing and use that as like kind of example, you know? Art inspiration, except yours is rigging inspirations. The one thing that I usually take as inspiration from other riggers the most, I think, is usually like face angles, because I don't really know how to squish the face angles as well. I would say. So I will look at how their face angle looks, and then I try to work my way to whatever they've done, you know? Obviously, I'm not asking you to like take a picture of what they did and then copy it directly from there. No, but you use that as a reference. It's kind of like, if you don't know how to draw in a certain perspective, you would also look at another artist's work, or like you use a 3D model to help you get to that perspective. Something like that. Okay, something like that. If you, I would say like, you'll be like, wow, but they've already done the face angle, right? So why can't I just take a screenshot and then I copy their face angle? Because different art styles, the face angles would look different. So if you just take a screenshot of the art angle they've done and then you paste it and you copy it with your model, it might not come out looking right. I'm just saying, okay? It might not come out looking right because your art style doesn't fit that face angle. That face angle is not meant for your art style. Then it'll just come out with a weird looking model. It would be easier to make a 3D model first and using that as a reference. Yes! There's actually people who do that. I think using the Vroid, I think because of how now you can import Vroid into the Clip Studio Paint. If you have it in certain version. I forgot which version it was. Okay. So now we've done the normal lashes movement. Okay, the top lash movement done. So now we will continue working on, we will continue to the side lash. So for the side lashes, there's no physics that has to be added to the side lash, so I would just use the normal path deform tool, like the one that I did for the main lash. I will usually add about 3 points. Okay, making sure that I add in this, my manual delay of the eye closing. And then from here we would adjust it in. You might be like, wow, adjusting this should be easy, right? I usually adjust it a little bit like this first, but later on when the sclera gets added into the blink motion sclera, that means the eye whites, right? You usually want your side lash to follow the sclera in closing. If not, it will look very weird, right? If your side lashes are poking into the sclera, which I have seen it happen. This is like a small detail. It just bugs me. So usually I would add in a closing movement first, but after I add in the sclera closing, then I would adjust accordingly. This is a personal preference kind of thing again. Okay, but if you're following my tutorial, I would really recommend you to adjust it accordingly with the sclera movement, just so that it doesn't look weird. Okay, personal preference. I have to make this very clear. This is not a must. This is a personal preference. Okay. And then we have the bottom lash, which bottom lash, again, no physics movement directly, so I'm just going to use the path, the deform path tool again. Making sure that it sticks around the middle, okay, of the eyelashes. Don't make it into a full circle. Do not connect the ends together. And then you change the width to control the dots that you want it to control. And then we will make sure to close it. Oops. Okay. And then making sure you edit the small as well. Usually for the small part, the inner parts of the eyelashes will be closed up a lot more. Also for the smiling of the bottom eyelashes, I would always adjust it a little bit like so. Just so that it looks like from normal, her eyes look like it's kind of smiling. It's a tiny detail. Okay. And then because I have the added delay, so you have to copy and paste that onto that part. Okay, so you can see, like, for example, if I go slowly, you can see the side lashes is actually cutting into like the sclera and things like that. So after I add in the bling for the sclera, I would always adjust that. Personally, cause it bugs me. So personal preference, okay? Personal preference. So side lashes, I would always like do it a little bit and then I will adjust it later on. Okay, so now we have this, the top eyelash highlight, which I would also just make a deformation. And then we will add it in. Just make sure you want it around the same place that you usually draw your... If you have like highlights on your eyelashes, you want it around usually where you would place it in your art. Oops. Or if you're rigging for somebody else, then you want it where it's originally seen. So mine is a little bit towards the right side of the first eyelash here. So I would try to put it as similarly in the position as that. Okay. And then now we have to adjust the lower eyelashes. Repetitive, I know, but this is something you'll have to do if you're rigging. Okay, so that blink. Eyelash 1, eyelash 2. Again, I'm using a deformer because I want to add physics to the eyelashes. That's why I'm using a deformer. Which I believe if you're using a trial version of Live2D Cubism, you will not be able to add as many deformer. So my way of rigging truly only works with the pro version. I'm very sorry, but I use the pro version. I would say if you want your you want to up your rigging, right? Pro version is probably the way to go because you get unlimited deformers, you get unlimited parameters, which is important if you want to like do a lot of things on the model. Okay. Now we'll move this up. Just kind of around the same area as where it is on the bottom eyelash. Also, because you move the bottom eyelash for the smiling look, make sure you do that for the eyelash as well. I think most of the time I would say like the bottom eyelashes isn't as complicated to make than the top eyelashes. So it shouldn't be too bad. The top lashes is just if you have like long eyelashes and you want it to flip when you blink, then you probably have to do a little bit more things. If not, it's not that bad either. In my opinion, okay? That's just in my opinion. Let me hide more of the lashes. Okay, that looks good for me. Okay.
Gouldis pair sent in 11 sacrifices to the Elder Witch.
Okay, I think that's good. For Say's model, you can see like she has a bottom lash that's not actually connected to the bottom lash. She has an extra bottom lash at the side. So for this, you have to try to envision where you want it placed. I was doing it on the wrong layer, but that's fine. Okay. Now we unhide the eyelashes. Right, so she can close the eyes now. Yes, smiling eyes now. Okay, so we have the eyelashes done. Hello, Ghoul Despair, thanks for the raid. I'm sorry, I don't actually have anything turned on right now because I'm teaching rigging. And thank you very much for the raid. Welcome in. Now we'll do the sclera. Oops, wrong spelling. Sclera blink. Okay. We'll be adding the blink for the sclera now. And if you didn't already, make sure that your eyes, like the irises, okay, and all that are all, clipped to your sclera, right? So that when you're adjusting it, like so, it hides everything. Usually if you ask me, does the shape have to be perfect, I'll be like, no, not really. Except, you know, I would always get very, well, I would say I'll get a little bit triggered if, like, for example, this part, and then you see the sclera and the eyelashes are not actually, like, linked together. This is a personal thing, as I've always said, okay? So, personal preference, again. If you don't mind it, just doing it like this is perfectly fine. If you mind it, then adjust accordingly, okay? For me, usually at around 0.3 or 0.4, I would also set a keyform in between. The reason why I didn't set it just now is so that we don't have to rig one more time of the eyelashes, because the eyelashes just have to be rigged at 0.1 and 0.0. And then if you do it afterwards, it will just take the in-between and just stick it there, so you don't have to re-rig the whole thing again. So the reason why I do that is because I don't like how when you blinking, your eyes are still looking straight up. To me, it looks a little bit derpy. I don't like how it looks. So I would add a point where the eyes is somewhat closed. She has drippy eyes, so her eyes closes a lot more at 0.3. I think if I open up the mermaid, right? So you can see, like, in the eyes, okay, the mermaid has one at around 0.3, 0.2, right? So I would move the eye to look down quite a bit when I rig the eye blinking. Okay, so her eyes is not like straight upwards. It doesn't look as weird to me. Personal preference. I always say this. This is a personal preference kind of thing. Okay. I think I would add 1 point at 0.4. For me, I would just adjust the sclera here. Okay. And then we'll just take the... Oh, not the sclera shade. Not this. I'll just call it our eyeball, I think. Blink. I will add it so that the eye look like it's looking downwards when she's blinking. And then move it a few pixels down some more when the eye fully closes. And then I'll hide this for a bit so that I can adjust the sclera. Does it have to be perfect? No. It's just... it makes me happy if I have it without issues. So this is a personal thing. I've been saying that for such a long time. This is a personal thing. Okay. So for this part here, okay, make sure you hide the sclera for the smile as well. If not, it's going to jut out of your eyes, which you do not want. Okay, making things look okay. And then we'll adjust this part. I might work at this a little bit faster than you, or you might work at this a little bit faster than me. It doesn't matter. Okay? Could just be because, you know, if I've done it more than you, then I'm faster than you. Or you're just fast at working. As long as everything looks right for you. Okay, for me, I would now add a point at 0.4 because this is where I want the kind of like a squint look. Okay, technically not a squint, but you know. Now we'll adjust the side lashes accordingly to fit around the eyes. And then I will usually adjust here as well. The pupil looking down adds a sultry effect. I think it makes it look not as derpy. I always thought it looked kind of derpy if the eye isn't like looking down when the character blinks, which is kind of what I feel about VRoid models, but you can't really adjust it on the VRoid model, which is sad. Okay, make sure that looks okay. The side lashes usually get squished quite a bit, and then from here I'll have to make sure you hide it away underneath your main lashes, if you know what I mean. Okay. For example, here it's not hidden, even though there will be another eyelash here, but it would be better if you manage to like hide it all in the main lash, so that if you add physics effect to like the eyelashes, which I don't think it would add crazy physics effects to the eyelashes, but it's still better if you do it. Okay, and then now We'll also make sure to adjust the smiling. Okay, that's usually the eyes closing and the eyes smiling, different position for the iris. Or for the eyeball. Okay. Then I would copy and paste this and then move it a few pixels down. Will you copy reflect this eye later? Yes! After I finish everything. So now, we have the eyes, just the normal eyes, open, close, and the smile. Okay. The eyelid still doesn't have anything done yet, but at least you have this. And then from here, I would also do the highlights in the eyes. So I have the eyes top highlight. I'll also add a blink to this, so that when it closes at around 0.4, I would shift this down. So it looks like it's still catching a little bit of the light at the top. Right, and then copy and paste this. Oh, what happened? What happened here? Copy, paste this. So that I can shift it down a few pixels. But it only moves down a little bit and it doesn't actually like show up that much when the eyes is like fully closed. Personal preference. Okay. And do the same for the smile. I also personally feel like I want the sclera to move out a little bit here. Okay. And then I would also adjust the bottom highlights a little bit. Technically, you don't have to do all this. Right. It's just about whether or not it looks good to you. And for me personally, I like to do a little bit of like this kind of adjustments, because I think it looks better when I do it. Okay, squeeze up a little bit, move it up a bit more. Just tiny details, right? Sometimes tiny details make the thing come together and look better. Okay. Copy and paste it. Alright. We have that. And then now we will also make sure to adjust the shading of the sclera if your sclera shade is like on a separate layer. Mine is, so I will make sure to adjust that as well. Okay. Copy paste. Make sure you move this down more, so it kind of looks like the shading is following a little bit of the eyelash blinking. Okay. There we go. So now we have these done. Now I'm going to do a little bit of adjustment on the eyelids. Usually I don't adjust it that much for the eyelids, I think. Can just go to like my old rig to like show. Not much adjustment on the eyelids itself. The makeup would follow the eyes, but as you can see, the eyelids itself moves down when she blinks. But other than that, not much else. That's usually how I go about rigging it. Depending on how you like, you might want to follow that, you might not want to follow that. For this, I will usually use this tool, right? This one, the deform brush tool. I have the weight at 100% most of the time. I don't think I really change that much. And if you press B and you click and drag, it will change your brush size. So if you're trying to figure out how that works, that's how you do it. I'll make the makeup kind of follow the eyelash. I know technically that's not how makeup works in real life, okay? But I kinda this is kind of not exactly a full makeup for me. I just feel like when you have a little bit of a red or kind of like a red tint on the side of the eyes, I always felt like that looks kind of nice. So that's why I usually do this. But if you're doing like a full makeup, you might wanna change the way that you rig it. Okay, just letting you know. Okay, kind of adjust it accordingly. Okay. So I have the so-called tint, kind of following the eyelashes, or the side of your eyelash actually. It's usually how I go about doing it. Okay. And then I will make one for the top lid and the top lid highlight. I'll just call it the our top lids. Okay, bling. And then when the eye closes, I will move this down. Alright. So it follows the eyes down a little bit. And then using the deform brush tool, I will move it a little bit down in the middle as well. Okay. And then we'll do it to the smile. In the smile, you move this part up, the middle part up a little bit. And then make sure that it moves not as much as the normal blink. Okay. And then the bottom eyelid, I know the mesh is a mess. I will go in and clean it up just a tiny bit. Mostly because it's not that important. Okay. I'm sorry to say this, but it's not that important. I don't know why there's that at the bottom there. Get rid of that one. Okay, that's about it. And then for this, I will use the same tool again, deform path edit. Okay, put it around the middle of the eyes. Adjust the width. And then we'll rig it in. Make sure the bottom eyelid follows kind of the way your bottom eyelash is moving. And then if you can't see, hide the parts so that you can see where your bottom eyelash is. And then make your bottom eyelid follow accordingly. Sometimes even a tiny bit of movement can make a huge difference. So you might want to add in the tiny movements as well. Okay. Then if you, for example, if you go into the physics settings, but you realize that your model is not blinking, then you might have to go into, I believe it was, where is it? It was somewhere here. Not that one. Here, under parameter, settings for eye blinking and lip sync. You have to click into this, and then you realize that, oh, my blinking is not actually set to eye blinking. This is why it doesn't blink in the physics settings. So you want to do that, and then while you're at it, you might as well add the lip sync to your mouth open and mouth form. Basically that. And then if you go in, she should start blinking by herself, without smiling or anything, but she'll start blinking. Okay. A little tiny detail that I would add is also you make a deformer for your eyebrows. eyebrows, brows, you know. And then you also add in a blink to that, just so that your brows move a little bit when she's blinking, which technically doesn't really happen in real life. But like I said, sometimes a little bit of tiny detail also works well for Live2D. And then for eye smile, you move it up. Alright. So we have that. And then now I will... Now that I have all this, now I will add all the lashes to like a deformer. Lashes and sclera and the eyelids. So usually I literally name it what it is. So R lash lid. Okay, and then I would put it as the brow movements. So for example, brow Y, I will make use of this. Okay. Now I will drag this up. Okay. And then negative brow Y movement, I will drag this down. So it kind of follows the eyebrows. And then same thing for the brow forms. For this one, because she has like large eyelashes, I will make the brush tool bigger. So it will do this, right? Okay. And then here, just the front. So it does that. So the eyebrows kind of makes the eyelashes and the eyelids move a little bit alongside with it. Just tiny details. And then below the eyebrow blink, I would make sure to select all of this. And then I will make sure to move them for eyeball XY. XY usually depends on how far you want to move them. Some people exaggerate them a lot more, some people don't exaggerate them as much. So this one, again, up to you, depends on your preference. Mine don't really move all that much, I would say. And then underneath the blink again, okay, RI top highlight XY. Okay. And then same thing for the bottom highlights. So now you can see like the highlights doesn't actually follow the eye XY movement that much. Right, but I think that makes it look a little bit more natural. Personal preference. Again, I keep saying this. Okay, make sure to save. So we have done that. Right? Obviously now it's not to just copy and paste and flip to the other side, because once you've done all this, you probably want to add physics before you do the copy and pasting. And for this, I would say you will want to wait till all the way until you finish the face angles. After you've done the eye physics and everything, you also rig in the face angles. Then you copy and paste for the other side. Okay, because when you copy and paste, sometimes some of the parameters or the physics doesn't get flipped. The physics doesn't get flipped for you immediately, and you have to go back in and flip everything, and you have to separate the physics from the left to the right. Okay, if not, when one eye blink, both eye physics get triggered, which is not something you want. So I would say wait until everything is done, including the face angles, then you copy and paste and flip the eyes. Unless if you want to do like occasional showcases, then it doesn't matter if like the thing is fully flipped or not. Then you just go ahead and copy and paste, I guess. If not, keep it this way. Okay. So we have these done. I think the next thing I usually do is the mouth form. So I would make sure to select my mouth, not the references, okay, but the mouth, the lips, lipstick if you have that, your inner mouth and all that. I will select all those and I would put it under a deformer just for mouth. Okay, you can name it whatever you want. I usually don't touch this deformer. This is just like it's like a folder, except you can't have folders under your deformer, so it's just, you know, put it all inside here so that I can find it easily. That's usually what I use it for. Oh, I forgot to add mesh for this. Okay, we'll quickly add a mesh for the mouth here. Mirror edit. Again, make sure all your mesh is containing your art. Sometimes your art file may come with the mouth like this, which already has a shape. Sometimes it will come with the mouth as a straight line. Either works. Okay, it doesn't really matter. So what I do right now, because I did prep my lips and lipstick for a smiling mouth, not for a smiling mouth, for a straight mouth line, which is why it's straight instead of following the curved mouth. I didn't like how the original lips look, so I'm keeping this one. Either way, doesn't really matter that much, because you just have to make the lips follow however you rig the mouth, and that'll be okay. So for now, we'll start with rigging the lips first. Usually I put around 5 points of deformer path around the same areas. Okay, something like this, I would say. And then again, change the deformer path width, right, to something you think it would trigger whichever points you want, like each dot to like trigger. And then I would always do the mouth form first. So I think for say, I would still do like just 3 points, because 3 points is easy. But I will make sure that she isn't smiling that much in the default look, because she personally doesn't like when she smiles that much. So you can click on this grid looking thing so that a grid pops up for you, so that you can kind of see where you're rigging the things at, if that makes sense. You can kind of tell if it's at the same area or not. And I think for her default look, I will make it less smiley. I usually still rig smiling faces, but we will just like tone down the smile a bit, if that makes sense. Hello, Syun. Welcome in. So she's still kind of smiling, but she's not smiling as much as like just now, you know? So a little bit of smiling angle at the sides, but mostly flat in the middle. And then from there, obviously, 3 forms. So I did make mouth references, which you can follow along by turning it on, and you follow along how the mouth reference look like, or you can just do it in a mouth form that you feel like fits, if that makes sense. Usually for mouth form, 0 default, -1 is like an unhappy looking mouth shape, and then +1 is happy looking mouth shape. So depending on how you want to go about it, you can rig it however you like. I will usually turn down the opacity of the reference. Do you have to follow it 100%? No. Okay, usually rig it however you feel like it. The references, sometimes an artist may give you a model with like references, sometimes they might not. That depends on the artist. Okay. I think for me personally, if like unhappy looking face has a little bit of pout like this, I think it looks way cuter on like say, obviously you don't have to do that for your own model if you're rigging your own model. I personally just do this because I think it looks cute on say. Also, usually you would have 2 lip lines. As you can see in this model, there's only 1, and the reason for that is because I would just finish the mouth form, and then I would copy and paste the lip line, just so that I save some time not having to redo the lip line. Okay, personal preference thing again. Alright. I think instead of giving her a mouth-like smile this time, we will just keep it normal like this. Alright. So we have default, small, and unhappy. Alright, something that way. Something along those lines. Okay. Then, I usually don't do the lips just yet. I work with just the line first. So now I would copy and paste this line, and then I will make sure that the one, it doesn't really matter which one because my line and lips are separated. Okay, so it doesn't matter which one is on top, which one is on bottom. Then now I will do the mouth open. Right, so we have the Japanese a, I, U, E, O, which, well, you're supposed to rig in. I usually would do one lip at a time, obviously, but usually, right, in mouth open is 0 and 1, so there's no negative 1. Okay, and most people would put key forms at 0, 0.5 and 1. Personally, I put mine at 0.4 instead of 0.5. Just a personal preference kind of thing again. Okay, so this one, up to you, however you want to do it. I put mine at 0.4. Just letting you know. So if you look at the mouth references that I've provided along with this file, right, you would see that there is a, I, U, E, O, but there's also one that's 2 double O's. Right, so the 2 double O's is the key form in between the O and closing. So at default look is where your where the mouth form O is at, and O would be the one used in between. I give it usually kind of like a puckered look nowadays, instead of like in the past where it's like a smaller O to like a bigger O. Now it's kind of a puckered look. That's how usually I rig it. Also, just so you know, I don't do V-Bridger. I don't know how V-Bridger works. Never did buy a tutorial for rigging V-Bridger mouse or anything. I did try to follow a tutorial of somebody else's before, but I thought it looked weird, so I never went about going along with it. So I'm sorry I can't teach you that, but you still get to learn how I rig a basic model. You have to look for another artist for the V-Bridger things. Okay. Then usually follow the reference till a certain point, and then you adjust the mouth shape by yourself accordingly. Because usually with like the references, since I put the reference as a black color, it's kind of difficult to see with your own lips line color. So you might want to turn it on and off to like find the shape. Okay. Now we'll have the O. If you had used like glue or something and you glued the lips line, the skin to the line, then you probably don't have to re-rig the skin part of the mouth. But I don't do that. So later on we will have to redo the shapes for the lips skin, which I don't think is all that difficult. So I think it will be fine. Okay, but if you're lazy, you might want to glue it if you know how to use glue. Okay, especially if you know how to use glue. And then now we'll make the E mouth shape. So I, U, E, O, the R and E is on +1. Okay. Alright. And then because I drew this like way long ago, I didn't redo the mouth references. She does have like a cat looking mouth shape when she's smiling. You can follow along with that, or you can just make it to a normal smiling mouth. Personal preference, doesn't matter. Do it whichever way you prefer. I used to give like everybody a cat mouth looking mouth shape whenever I make them smile because I thought it looked cuter that way. But truly doesn't matter, not really. It just depends on how you want it to look like in the end. Of course, if you're rigging for somebody else, you would want to kind of see how their personality is like. Or you can straight up ask the person you're rigging for, like, do you prefer a normal smiling mouth, or do you prefer like a smug looking smiling mouth, or you prefer, you know, etc, etc. So this is something you as the rigger will have to decide by yourself, right? If you're rigging for yourself. If you're rigging for somebody else, then you can ask them about it, see what they prefer. For me, because there, this, like for example, for Shikise, she is not the one who commissioned me to rig her model. Okay, usually I do it because I want to use her model as a practice, etc. I don't ask her anything, I choose. I get to pick. Alright, so depending on what you're doing, you might be able to get to pick, you might not be able to get to pick. Okay, commissions and personal work is always different in the end. This is -1 is A and U for the mouth shapes. Doesn't matter, to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't actually know because the mouth shape, I kind of follow the a rigger called Non. So I followed Non's mouth tutorial, and that's how they usually rig it. So that's how I go about rigging my models as well. And it has worked all this time, so you know, I'm not the smart one here. Okay. I don't really like the shape of that, so I'm going to adjust this. Okay, like I said, usually personal preference, right? So make sure you play around with like the mouth shapes and stuff until you find one that you think looks good. For me, I think I want her mouth to not open as big when she's smiling. We're gonna keep it. Probably something like that. Oops. Pressed the wrong thing. Okay. Alright. So now we'll have to rig in the skin and lipstick, which isn't too difficult. The way I do it right now is straight. The same thing. I would use the deform path tool, right? And I will put around the same area as before. 5 points. Make sure that your lipstick and your lip skin is selected. Okay, so that it will move both of them at the same time. Alright. Again, I would adjust the path width usually to around where the lipstick is. Okay, with both of them selected, you can adjust both of them at the same time, like so, right? And if you select one of them, you actually would find that the dots only appears on like one of the layers. Okay, but once you select both of them, you'll still be able to like adjust both of them at the same time. That's how I usually go about adjusting the lip skin and the lipstick. And yes, you'll have to do this for both the upper lips and the bottom lips. Okay, but it's not too bad, I would say. Obviously, most of the time they ask you to like separate your lipstick and the lip skin is so that weird shape like this doesn't really happen, but I feel like you can't really see them most of the time, so I'm not too bothered with like the weird shapes. Obviously this is also because this is not a commission, this is just something that I'm doing for a friend for free, so I don't really be bothered. But if you're doing for a commission, perhaps you might want to keep that in mind. Okay, especially when other people has paid money for it, maybe you want to give them like, you know, a better quality. But for practice, I would say don't worry about it that much. Personal thing, okay? You can always just adjust this part to be like not as crazy looking, even though because of how I've done the what do you call this, the mesh, that's why there is kind of a weird shape. Okay, but if you added in a few more points, the weird shape probably won't be as prominent, so you could keep that in mind. Or perhaps that's a little bit late to talk about this, huh? but that's fine. I tend to do things in the way of I wing it till I get it, so sometimes the way I do things can be a little bit extra, require you to do a little bit of extra steps. It happens. But it works for me, so I keep doing it that way. If it works for you too, then everything's fine, you know? Okay. Now we do the bottom lips. Sometimes this happens because of the deformer path tool. When the shape of the circle is too big, this would happen. Then all you have to do is just adjust the points and everything will be fine. So I'll say don't worry about it too much. Okay, it might look very scary when you first see it happening, but don't worry about it too much, because a few adjustments will be able to fix it. For example, like this, then you just go back in and adjust the points. You can always put it into the physics settings and then you put it under posing to see how the mouth movement kinda looks like. Okay, and then you see if it looks okay to you or not. If it doesn't look okay, adjust it some more. If it looks okay, proceed. Alright. To me, it looks fine. So I'm going to go on and work on the inner mouth. So for the inner mouth, first I will make a deformer. Okay, and I will always call it mouth MFO just for it to stand for mouth form and open. You can do it however you like. Just make sure you understand what deformer is for what. Okay, when you're rigging your own thing. Alright. So first of all, we will hide the inner mouth behind your lips and the skin. If you press and hold alternate, you'll be able to resize it like what I'm doing right now. So you'll be able to resize both sides at once. Obviously, there are times where it still like peeks through like a tiny bit. At times like this, you can either just use the green dots itself to like adjust, or you can use the brush to adjust. Do it however you like. Just make sure you hide everything properly, right? And you make sure there's no like gaps when the mouth is open. Okay. Okay, so now that I have done the inner mouth, right? As you can see, the inside of the mouth, nothing is moving it because we haven't rigged it in. We will have to start doing that, but at least everything is, the inner mouth is not poking outside of the skin. Okay, that's something you don't want happening. So now I will be doing the upper teeth first. Okay, so upper teeth, MFO, that's usually how I do it. And for me, usually they don't move the upper mouth because in real life, your upper teeth doesn't move either, only your bottom jaw moves, right? But because this is anime, and I don't really think you have to keep it like real life movements, I prefer it the more anime way, which is kinda, you will be moving the upper teeth. But if you don't like it, just adjust accordingly and you make sure that your upper teeth don't move. It works fine too. Okay, personal preference kind of thing again. I prefer that it moves, so I will be doing it that way. So usually I would come to the E mouth movement, which is like smiling with your teeth close together. And I will move the teeth to the mouth closing kind of look, right? And this will not be the default teeth area. No, I usually do this first. Okay, and then I will set the keyforms. And then at the, this is 0.4. At 0, I would move it down, just so that there's a little bit of movement when the mouth opens. And then until the mouth opens widest, now I'll move the teeth to where I want it to be, which is probably somewhere around here. Okay. So you can see that my teeth movement is moving, right? Which is technically not something that happens in real life. The upper teeth don't move, but I prefer it this way. So I will keep this. I will make sure here at this mouth form no teeth is showing. Here the teeth is showing, but that's fine. Okay, and then I will make sure that I move the teeth down again here, so you can kind of see when you open up the mouth, you can kind of see a little bit of teeth. Usually you don't notice this, but I am picky and I prefer it this way. So I will do it like this. Okay, and from here, it would have the teeth showing a little bit. So once again here, the teeth will move down. Okay, so my upper teeth is done. Now I will do the lower teeth. Okay, lower teeth and FO. Again, I will use the mouth smiling but teeth closed to look, to kind of gauge where I want the teeth to be. And usually, if you ask me, this is a little bit too high for the bottom teeth, so I would move it down. I'll move down the upper teeth as well, which is not exactly how real life works, but it works for me, so I don't really give a damn. Okay, and then for this one, okay, here I will move the upper teeth up, and here we'll move it down. Oh, as you can see here, the mouth open is not all the way open. Okay, we'll move this down to where you want it to be. Okay, I think that's a good position. So we'll keep that there. And then we'll make sure that here, move it down. Okay, here I will move it up a bit. Again, just see a little bit of teeth when the mouth is opening. Oh, here it's not showing all the way through again. Okay, so this is how I usually do it. Okay, so we have the upper teeth and lower teeth done. Now, I usually stick the molars. I don't do upper molars, I only have lower molars, so that you can kind of see it when your mouth is like fully open and smiling with the tongue. And I will usually put this too in like the same deformer for mouth opening. Okay. So usually what I'll have is we'll move it down so it has like kind of a movement, because usually, you know, when your mouth is closed, your tongue and molar should also be more towards the top. Okay, and then you can adjust accordingly under each mouth form. So I think for this one, okay, the smiling works fine. Nothing needs to be edited. For this, I think it works okay too, but I would want the tongue to go down a bit more in the O mouth shape. Okay. And then for here, I want it a little bit down, and then way more at ooh. Okay. Now we can go back to the physics settings, random posing, and then just look at the mouth open close and see if everything looks alright with you. To me, alright, the mouth movement looks good to me, so I probably don't have anything else to edit for that. So we'll keep it as that. So for cheeks, it's usually for blushing. Okay, the cheek parameter is for blushing. So I have her blush, and currently it's at 100%, but 100% usually is too much for like a deformed look. So I would lower down the opacity, and then I would put at around 0.6. Okay, so the default is from 0 to 0.6, and then at 1, that's when I'll make it darken. So when the character smiles wide, okay, that's when the blush would darken. That's usually how it goes. I also have a nose blush, so I would be making this at a 0%, because I don't want it to show up there. I want it to show up when it's smiling at the maximum. So I would darken it. Okay. Same for, I also have a blush for the ears. It's the same thing. We'll put it at 0%. And then for ears, I don't want the blush to be as deep, so I'll put it around, I think 50% is good. Okay. 50% is good. The reason why I'm not adding the blush for the left ear is because I'm going to copy and paste the right ear, okay, and flip it after I've added in physics and stuff. So I'm not going to do it for the left ear. So now if I start doing this, where you can see that the blush darkens. Okay. So this is how it works. So we've done the right eyes, the mouth form and mouth open, and blush, blush is not that difficult to do, so blush is quite easy. If you wanted to, alright, I usually tend to do this too. Oh, by the way, at this point in time, after you've done like your mouth and stuff, you can delete away the mouth reference. Please don't leave it inside the file. Please like delete it away. Okay. Now you can go into your head. Alright. Select all the parts, which is, for me, that is the headline. Okay, hit L, hit highlight, hit HL, hit shade, hit S, and hit C. So you have to select all of those. And usually I would also select the neck head shade, but I would do it after I've actually grouped all this. So if I put this as, just put this as head, right? And I will select the same field again, and I put it as head MFO. Okay. And from there, I would actually drag in the neck head shade. And then we will change the width and height of the deformer to somewhere around here. Okay. I put it as 8 and 15, so 8 width by 15 height. Do you really need that many? Probably not, but it's fine. Okay. And then I will usually set the mouth open. So I would select around here, from around the cheek area. Sometimes I would go a little bit below, but I think this is fine as well. On cheek area, and then I would drag this down. Right? And why when the mouth smile? Because mouth smile is supposed to be when the mouth open the widest. It's supposed to be okay, so it might not be, but it's supposed to be where the mouth opens the widest. So I would set this here, and then after I've done it there, I would put in the key forms for the mouth forms, and then at each different mouth form, I would adjust the mouth closing, the jaw basically, accordingly, while making sure it moves, you know, a little bit upwards and stuff. It's just a little bit of like jaw movement, but like I said, sometimes tiny details can add a lot to the model. Okay, so now the jaw moves when the mouth is opening. Obviously, you can add more like jaw movement details, but usually I feel like if you just move it, if you just set it at the mouth closing and the mouth opening at the widest, it works well enough. You don't have to add more like forms in between. Okay? So to me, this works. And the reason why I make the deformer with just the head, normal head stuff, then I add the neck head shading, is so that the deformer is not made in a bigger shape, because I don't need to be a bigger shape. And you can see like the neck shading, the head neck shading moves accordingly as well anyways. So this works, okay? This works for this scenario. I don't think it'll work for every scenario, but it works for this scenario, and that's fine with me, okay? We have that done. We can also do this if you're using, I believe if you're using webcam, you'll have to use Rebridger to track mouth X. Okay, but mouth X isn't that difficult to do. So I'll just replicate the mouth form and then I'll rename it to mouth X, because you just want the -1 and 1. You can also do it by creating a new parameter. I'm lazy to create a new parameter, so I usually just replicate the one that I need and I go from there. So if you want to do mouth X, right, select your lips, the lip skins if it's separated, your lipstick if it's separated, and then your inner mouth. Nothing else. You don't select your teeth, you don't select your tongue, you don't select the throat if you have like a throat layer, okay? Only the lip lines, the lip skin, the lipstick if you have them, and the inner mouth. And then you create a deformer and you name it mouth X. Then you create the parameter. Okay, depending on how much you want it to like move, that's how much you deform it. My mouth X doesn't move that crazy. Okay, so usually I will use the brush tool, the deform brush tool, and then I will move it to the side. Okay, make the shape, and then I will make the brush smaller, and that's when I'll edit the details of it. Okay, usually you get around like what you want and it should be fine. like get like a shape going and you think it looks okay, and that should be a-okay. But after you adjust it with the mouth closed, you might want to go to like mouth open and check if the shape looks alright, okay? Because when you're adjusting it with the mouth closed, you're only adjusting the shape for when the mouth is closed. But this is the shape you have for when the mouth closed and when the mouth is open. So you have to make sure that everything looks alright. Okay? Of course, after you adjust the mouth open, you also have to make sure that your mouth closed looks alright. Okay. I know usually like mouth X is I don't know, not a lot of people make the mouth X's and stuff. But mouth X isn't too difficult, I would say. I think the difficult one would be tongue, because you have to make sure that the tongue looks alright in like angles and stuff. That's very, very troublesome. Okay, so after you've done one side, just reflect motion to the other side, and it will just reflect the whole thing for you. Okay, and then obviously if you've made a mouth X, you might want to also go to the head movement that you've just made. Make sure this mouth X deformer is above the mouth open deformer that you've done for the head. Okay, I'm just going to call it head MX or head mouth X. And then from here, I'm just going to use the deform brush tool, okay, and take the chin and move it sideways a little bit. Right now you can see like the head highlight isn't following as well, so I'll have to go in and do something about that. Is it not inside? It is inside. Oh, for some reason there's no mesh. That's why I was looking weird. It's okay. We'll just copy this, the head shading. There. And now it follows along. Okay. Again, you can see how everything looks by going to the posing, because it would also randomize the mouth X movement. So you can see how it looks. I personally think that the mouth X is a little bit high up for my liking, so what I'll do is I'll take the deform brush tool and I'll move it down a little bit. Okay. And if you're doing mouth X, I would say there's another tiny detail that you can add, which is to the eyelashes and the brows. Which you might think like, oh, that's troublesome. But tiny details goes a long way, okay? So I would do this and I would call it mouth X. Okay, above the brows movement. And then when the mouth is going away, you move the eyelids downwards. Okay, something like that. Move mostly the I'll say move mostly the bottom eyelashes. So you can make the brush tool even smaller to just move the bottom lashes. Okay, and then when it's going, you move the bottom eyelashes up. Alright, something like that. Except I will move this up because it's dragging a little bit too much of the top lashes for me. Just something simple like this. Another thing you can add is to the eyebrows itself, which it would be when the mouth is towards the eyes, you will want your brows to like furrow down. Okay, and if you're going to add in brow movement, then I would say for your lash lid movement, you would also want to add in some movement for that. So when its bottom lash is squished, the top lash also goes in. Okay, so following the brows. So one is following the mouth, the other is following the brows. And then when the mouth goes the opposite way, you move the eyebrows up. I don't remember who I saw this from, but I saw it from a rigger that I followed quite some time ago, and they kind of did this, right, for their mouth X. So I've been doing it since. I'm so sorry, I don't remember the artist anymore. I would tell you to like really kind of play, like always watch the random posings in physics settings, because sometimes you'll be able to catch something that you didn't notice while you're just rigging certain parts. If you have the later versions of Live2D Cubism, I have not used them, so I cannot tell you anything. But if you have the later versions, I believe that you can connect your VTube Studio to Live2D Cubism itself. And from there, you can just literally watch the face move as you rig along with it. I think. I don't remember how. But if you have that and your PC can take that and not die, okay, if it can do that and not die, it will be great to use that. Okay, so that you can kind of test the model as it goes, instead of having like in the old versions like mine 5.0, you'll have to export it out before you can test it in VTube Studio. So if your PC can take the latest version and stuff like that, then it will be good to use it to test. If not, then just watching it is fine too. Then you just wait until later on to test it before you find out if there's like any issues whatsoever. Right now, if you ask me, from what I see, I don't think there's any issue with what I've rigged so far. Obviously, instead of just like watching the random posing, you can also just, you know, go ahead and do this so you can test things out yourself, right? That is if you wanna go ahead and test it one by one. Okay. But I would say that the thing that you probably will want to look out for is if there's anything clipping through each other. If there isn't, then perfect, you know, doesn't matter. Okay, right now there's no clipping, so everything's perfect for me. Alright, so that's mouth X, easy peasy. Okay. What else? If you want to do cheek puff, I'm not really all that great at cheek puffs, because if I do those, I usually don't care how the mouth opening looks, because if you're puffing your cheeks, usually you can't open your mouth either. But if you want to do that, just make another layer above mouth X. By the way, I'll just say, don't put it below mouth X, because hierarchy is very important in Live2D. If you want to ask me why cheek puff is above mouth X, it's because it would have to control it. You have to control the things inside mouth X, so you might want to put it above mouth X, okay? But I won't be doing cheek puffs for her. Cheek puffs, usually you would just make the you would just squeeze the lips together, move the middle of the lips a bit higher, and then you pull the cheeks out. That's usually it. It's not too difficult, but it also kinda don't really matter as much. For today, I think this is all we'll be doing. We did the mouth, we did the eyes, only the R side, and we did matchmaking. Next time around, we will go through with eye physics. I know that there are people who do the eye movement with like it looks 3D even with just eye movement, but I usually do that with like angles. So if you want to do that and you know how, go ahead. Okay, I do that with angles, so I don't really do that with like just normal eye movements. So that's all for today. I hope it helps. It's 12:30, so I'm going to end here. Thanks for hanging out. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the Discord. I've posted about it before. Okay, then I'll continue next time. I don't know when next time is. Maybe tomorrow if I feel like it. But I'll continue on next time to continue with what we've done here. Okay? See you. Bye bye.